Gyarados EX rose to the top of the Mythical Island meta, with Druddigon and Misty enabling it to one-shot some fools. Today, I'm going to teach you how to play Gyarados EX, including my deck list, how I rate certain matchups, and then I'm going to go over some replays to show you all some strategy and more matchup information. Let's go! Alright, let's start with the deck list with Gyarados EX itself. Gyarados EX is a 180 health first stage evolution. It is by far and above the highest health first stage evolution. This means it can survive one-shots from just about anything. The only meta things that can one-shot Gyarados are Charizard, a really lucky Dragonite, and a really lucky Celebi. What's supposed to balance out how powerful its health is its move. Its move, Rampaging Whirlpool, is a 4-cost attack that deals 140 damage, which is huge. After the attack though, it'll choose a random Pokemon with energy on it and discard an energy from it. But that's not a problem at all because you can just add on another water energy next turn. While the other 4-cost moves, like Charizard's Blitz and Mewtwo's Side Drive, all take 2 energy off. Gyarados only takes 1, so you can just replace the water energy next turn. So Gyarados is so strong because it's a first stage evolution, whereas the decks that can really compete with Gyarados are all second stages, so they'll take longer to ramp, and then our supporter Misty can get us that water energy super fast. The 180 health is just super strong and makes Gyarados, I think, the strongest EX Pokemon. Now, Gyarados EX evolves from the legendary Magikarp, which we also run 2 copies of. We run this copy of Magikarp, which has the attack Leap Out. So for 1 energy, you can switch the Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. This is in the case that you draw into Magikarp and Magikarp only on the first turn. Then you can draw into a Druddigon, hopefully, or a Froakie, or another Magikarp, and swap it out using the energy. You won't spend the energy, so it's like a free retreat. But do keep in mind that it does immediately end your turn. I've forgotten that a lot of times and missed stuff like the Water Shuriken. But yeah, be careful because Magikarp is only 30 health, so it can get sniped by stuff like Hitmonlee. If you're playing against a fighting deck, be sure to watch out for that. Next up is the Greninja line. Starting with Greninja itself, this is a stage 2 evolution with the ability Water Shuriken. Once during your turn, you can activate the ability, whether Greninja is on your bench or you're active, to deal 20 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon, whether they're on the active or the bench. So this ability is super good for this deck. The first reason is that Gyarados' move is 140 damage, but if you combine that with the Water Shuriken damage, that's 160. And that 160 is enough to one-shot just about everyone in the meta. Celebi was already getting one-shot, but now Mewtwo EX can get one-shot. Now Charizard EX can get one-shot because of the water weakness from Gyarados. So this combo, if you can get it going, is basically a guaranteed one-shot every turn. Super strong. Greninja also has a 2-cost attack, Mist Slash, for 60 damage. This does come up frequently. I mean, if you're hiding behind a Druddigon and you're just sending out Water Shurikens, you already have a Gyarados stacked, then you can just start stacking Greninjas. You can swap in Greninja to secure kills while you're hiding your Gyarados behind so that they don't get targeted by a boss monster. I've got plenty of examples of that later in this video. Greninja evolves from Frogadier, which we also play 2 copies of. Frogadier has a 1-cost attack Water Drift for 30, 80 health, and then Froakie is our basic with 60 health. It's got a 1-cost 10 damage attack. Finally, our 3rd star Pokemon is Druddigon. Druddigon is a dragon type with 100 health, and it is a basic. So this is going to be our main tank. We want to start with Druddigon in the active slot as much as possible. This is because 1, it's really tanky with 100 health, but 2, its ability Rough Skin is super good for our deck. What Rough Skin does is that whenever an opponent's Pokemon attacks Druddigon, they'll take 20 damage no matter what. This 20 damage, just like Greninja's Shurikens, softens up pretty much everyone in the game for Gyarados' one-shot. So a lot of the part of our games is to have Druddigon up and then try to force them to hit our Druddigon, especially in the Mewtwo matchup, because then they'll get hit for 20 and then you can come in with Gyarados and one-shot them. If they choose not to attack Druddigon because they're scared of that, then you can easily slowly whittle them down with the Greninjas. So those 3 key Pokemon together make an unstoppable combo. So we've got 12 Pokemon with 6 basics. The rest of our cards are 6 supporters, starting with 2 Misties. Misty is our water energy generation, so you can choose one of your water Pokemon and then you'll flip coins until you get a Tails, and then for every heads you flip, you'll add 1 water energy to that Pokemon. So this is basically all luck, right? But if you take it by probability, you have a 50% chance to get 1, 25% chance to get 2, that'll keep halving. And there's a really rare case, right, where you go first, you have Magikarp and Gyarados in your hand, you have a Misty, and then you flip 3 energy. That means you can be hitting people with Gyarados for 140 on turn 2, which is just nuts. So this does add a lot of an RNG and luck element to this deck, but even if you miss your Misties, the Druddigon combo is so good for keeping you alive, and you really only need energy on Gyarados. Part of this is because we also run 2 copies of Leaf. What this does is it'll make your retreat cost 2 energy cheaper, and because Druddigon is only a 2-cost retreat, having this Leaf makes it effectively free. So you can tank with Druddigon and then swap in Gyarados for the win. That's another reason why Druddigon is so good, right? It only has a 2 retreat cost, whereas some tanks like Kangaskhan and Snorlax had a 3. Then of course, another 2 Professor Oaks, essential in every deck. Hard Draw is so good in every deck. And here when we want to get those Greninjas, the Druddigons, and the Gyarados out as fast as possible, perfect. Finally, our last 2 cards are 2 Pokeballs. The Pokeballs will get your Froakies, your Magikarps, and your Druddigons. You only really need 1 of each, although 2 Greninjas is a really good and strong setup, especially if you're stalling for the late game with Druddigon. You can also feel free to run 2 Druddigons on your field. You can summon the last one when the first one dies. Since Gyarados is your only EX Pokemon, there's no punishment there for the score. Alrighty, totally featured me now, but that's how it goes. Let's talk about some matchups for Gyarados EX. Starting off with Aerodactyl EX. So Aerodactyl EX is usually favored, but the one stipulation is the Hitmonlee. Hitmonlee will give you tons of trouble because Hitmonlee's attack deals 30 to one of your benched, and Magikarp has an exact HP of 30. So if they open it with a Hitmonlee, you're pretty screwed because you won't be able to evolve Magikarp because they'll just keep one-shotting it. If they don't open Hitmonlee, this matchup is totally okay. Druddigon will stall until you get your Magikarp into Gyarados, and you can overwhelm them once you get Gyarados online. So I'm going to put this at either way. With Hitmonlee, it's pretty losing. Without Hitmonlee being played, it's pretty favored. Arcanine EX. So the thing about this matchup is that Inferno Onrush at 3 energy deals 120 damage. This can one-shot your Druddigon and rush through you if they get lucky with their Moltres. But if you guys both get lucky with your energy generation, right? You get lucky with your Misty and they get lucky with your Arcanine, you're going to beat them almost every time. I put this in favored. Gyarados will always one-shot Arcanine because of its weakness to water. And Gyarados can also full tank an Arcanine Blast. Articuno, I'm going to put this at winning. This is referring to like an Articuno 18 trainer deck. 1, Gyarados is just too tanky. 2, we have enough tempo to match like a really lucky Articuno. And 3, we scale so much better than an Articuno deck, right? Because they only have 2 Pokemon to play around. Maybe they're running Aerodactyl. But even then, Gyarados one-shots both of them at 140 health. Next up is Blaine. So since we're water type against fire, our matchup is already pretty good. Gyarados one-shots all of the Blaine Pokemon. And a lot of times the Blaine Pokemon can't even one-shot Druddigon. The big exception is, of course, Ninetales, who with the Blaine bonus will one-shot Druddigon. But that costs 2 fire energy and then an energy per turn to use that. But by the time they burn through 2 Druddigons, you should have your Gyarados up and ready to attack. Gyarados can easily tank 2 hits from any Blaine Pokemon, so it's a winning matchup from there. You can even use Greninja's attack to clear out some Blaine Pokemon as well. Celebi EX, I think this is a pretty hard winning matchup. Of course, it depends on how lucky they get with their hits without Superior and then how fast they hit Superior. But a lot of times this Celebi will get stuck on your Druddigon and then you'll happily be able to one-shot Celebi with your Gyarados. It's also pretty common in this matchup for Greninja to poke out Celebi because it only has 130 health and then swap in to kill it itself before you even get a Gyarados online. Charizard EX, I'm going to put this in favored. You might be surprised I'm not putting it in winning because we are water type. But even with the water type, Gyarados' attack does not one-shot Charizard. It leaves it at 20 health left. Of course, if you throw in a Greninja ability, this will one-shot. But the fact is that Charizard does actually one-shot Gyarados with its 4-cost attack. Usually end up winning because of Misty's tempo is usually higher than the one of Moltres, unless they get really lucky. But if you guys have the same amount of luck, you're usually winning this matchup. Dragonite, I'd say this is a hard winning matchup. Of course, you don't one-shot Dragonite with the Gyarados attack, but if you get a single Greninja star or poke with literally anything else, you'll get a one-shot off. Dragonite is just way too slow with no energy generation, and also your Gyarados is really tanky at 180 health, so it's really unlikely you get one-shot by Draco Meteor. Gengar, so surprisingly, I'm going to put this at either way. This is because its 3-cost Spooky Shot is pretty low energy for a total one-shot onto our Druddigon. And also the ability Shadowy Spellbind is actually pretty relevant for us since we run a ton of supporters. We're pretty dependent on Misty and leafing out Druddigons, so being locked out of those can be really bad for us. Given enough luck, we have enough tempo to go toe-to-toe with Gengar, and we have a lot more late game insurance than the Gengar deck does. The other thing is that the Gengar deck usually runs Mew EX, which can be really bad for us as we're going to be taking 140 damage from Gyarados. However, Gyarados does one-shot Mew EX, and Mew EX cannot one-shot Gyarados. Golem, I'm going to put this in the favorite category. Golem's ability reads that they will take 30 less damage from attacks. However, this doesn't apply to the Greninja ability, right? Because it's not an attack. So if you get your attack off first with Gyarados, you can one-shot it with a Greninja star plus a Gyarados attack. However, if they get the guard press off, you're going to need 2 more Greninja attacks or a second attack. We ramp faster in an even state because Gyarados is only a stage 1, whereas Golem is a stage 2, and they have to roll their Brocs while we have to roll our Misties. Given the same amount of luck, I'd put this in favored. The fact is that we can simply survive Gyarados EX. The only issue with this matchup is going to be if they're running Hitmonlee. Marowak EX, I'm going to put in favored as well. Again, issue if they're running Hitmonlee, but otherwise we're one-shotting Marowak EX with the Gyarados attack. And if they get really lucky and hit Boomerang twice, it's still not one-shotting Gyarados. It's also a stage 1 EX just like us, so with even luck, I'd put this in favored. Melmetal, I think this is a winning matchup right now. The Melmetal deck is just too slow. The ability Hard Coat takes 20 less damage from attacks, but this again doesn't apply to the Greninja stars. So with 1 Greninja and 1 Gyarados attack, they're one shot. Now this ranking is going to change when Dialga releases, but everything's going to change, so stay tuned. Mewtwo EX, I'm going to put this in the favored category. So I actually find myself doing really well into Mewtwo matchups. The only reason I don't put this in winning is because of Mew EX. But again, we do one-shot Mew EX with the Gyarados attack. Given that we get equally lucky, we can shut down Mewtwo with the Greninja stars and a Gyarados attack. And once they run out of one Mewtwo, it's pretty easy to take the third point. Pidgeot EX, so if they combine this with Hitmonlee, you're in pretty big trouble, right? I'd put that in losing. If they don't combine it with Hitmonlee, then you put it in either way. The reason why you're in trouble with Hitmonlee, especially in this deck, is because of Pokeflute. So if they kick down one of your Magikarps, they have basically a chokehold over you, right? Because at any moment, they can summon a Magikarp from your discard pile and then kick it down with Hitmonlee. The existence of that card is pretty threatening, as well as Pidgeot EX's attack. If you have at least one benched Pokemon, it can one-shot your Druddigon as well. So I'd put this in the losing category. However, that's given that they actually get out the Pidgeots or they hit their Hitmonlees. If they don't run Hitmonlee at all, then I'd move this up to either way. Pikachu EX. So this is, I'm going to put in a losing matchup. The tempo is just super high, dealing 120 damage from the Pikachu with 3 benched Pokemon. Plus on top of that, we're running waters, so we're all going to take 20 extra damage. And that extra chip damage definitely matters. Pikachu EX can easily one-shot Druddigon, and it always gets one-shot by Gyarados either way. So it doesn't really care about the chip damage from Druddigon, it'll just run straight through it. You gotta be pretty lucky with your Misty to beat this matchup. Primeape. So I'm also going to put this in losing because one, the tempo of Primeape decks is really high, especially the fight back one. The fight back can one-shot through Druddigon, and then these decks almost always run Hitmonlee as well. So that's a big danger to your Magikarp. Oftentimes they'll tempo through you too fast. Scolipede Weezing, I think this matchup is pretty favored. We one-shot Scolipede, we one-shot Weezing, and this deck actually gives us plenty of time to ramp up in the backline because it wants to deal damage over time. And so by the time they have a good poison on us, we usually just one-shot everyone with the Gyarados anyway. It is pretty hard for us to cure our Druddigon of poison because of the 2 energy retreat cost, but most of the time you'll be letting Druddigon die anyway to stall out for your Gyarados. Finally, Starmie EX, I'm going to put this in favored. Of course, a lot of it is up to Misty RNG, but Gyarados can one-shot Starmie, Gyarados can also one-shot Articuno. Our late game plan is a lot more stable than theirs if we can survive the early game. Starmie EX cannot kill Druddigon in one hit, neither can Articuno, and oftentimes they have to use Misty or an Oak as their supporter before Giovanni. So by the time they get through your Druddigon, you'll usually be good to play Gyarados. Alright, this section we're going to wash over some replays against meta decks to kind of go over the general strategy you want to go through when you play this deck, as well as some matchup specific tips and tricks. Let's start off with this replay against Mewtwo. This was a legendary battle. It was like 15 minutes long. It's probably the best game I've played of Pokemon Pocket. So let's see what we got here. So we start off with the Golden Mewtwo, and we hit second. They play out the Ralts, Double Ralts, Mew EX, and the Mewtwo EX. We start out with Druddigon and 5 supporters. Incredible stuff. So we draw into Pokeball and Froakie. Play the Pokeball. We hit the Magikarp and Froakie opener. So it's respectable. Not amazing. But against Mewtwo, right, they're never going to attack on their first turn or their first energy. Unless they open with only Mew EX or something and no Mewtwo. We hit a Frogadier, and then we play our second Professor's Research. We draw another supporter. That's okay, because we do draw our Gyarados, which does give us a lot of agency for the next turns. Next up, they do hit their Gardevoir in 3 turns, which is pretty bad for us, really good for them, right? And then what they do here, right, is that they attach 1 energy to Mew EX and then 1 from Gardevoir. Since there's no point in attaching both to Mewtwo, it can go either way, right? Because Mewtwo only needs even amounts of energy. If you have 3, it's going to go to 5, and you only need 4 for side drive. So their obvious best next play is to attach energy to Mew EX, because Mew can copy the Gyarados attack. We draw another supporter. So we've drawn all of our supporters. That's 7 different ones, which is very impressive. Let's see what we got on the Misty here. And we do actually hit a heads, which means our Gyarados is active now. Now we pass because we can't use the leaf because we already used Misty. So we have no way to retreat away Druddigon. The Mythical Slab and miss. Now here is where the fun begins for the Druddigon lock. So they actually swap out Mewtwo because they know I can leaf into Gyarados. So they swap into Ralts. And what I do here is I play a Froakie and I play a Misty on my Frogadier because I don't think I'm going to be playing a second Gyarados anytime soon. Or actually, I think at this time I didn't even have a second Gyarados in my deck. So I play a Frogadier and pass because I know with the current setup, right, they can't play a second Mewtwo because they already have a Ralts and a Gardevoir. And I know I can just stack Greninjas behind this Druddigon. Since anytime Mewtwo attacks the Druddigon, it's going to get one-shot by Gyarados because it's going to go down to 130 health. There's no way for them to potion or anything because the turn instantly ends after they attack. So we're always going to be able to one-shot Mewtwo after they attack our Druddigon. Now, another thing they could do is that Mew EX could use genetic hacking to hack the Druddigon and deal 90 damage. But if they're in a position where they don't have Mewtwo EX and we kill the Mew EX off, then we can easily Sabrina and then one-shot the Gardevoir. Now, they don't know that we're actually not running Sabrina in this list, but it's very possible for a Gyarados player to be doing that. So they end up actually attaching energy to the Ralts because it's active, right? And we get our first Greninja, and now we can just slowly start whittling away. So I choose to hit the Gardevoir here. My reasoning for this is that I know that they're going to leave the Ralts up in the active spot, and Gardevoir is the squishiest Pokemon so far, right? Also, Gardevoir is their engine for the side drive. And basically my way to a win, right, is going to be killing either Mewtwo EX or Mew EX plus Gardevoir, because they're probably going to evolve into the second Gardevoir. And as soon as I kill one of the Pokemon, right, they're probably going to play a second Mew EX or a second Mewtwo EX. So I decided to whittle down the Gardevoir. This is a faster point than the Mewtwo EX and Mew EX. Note that I don't hit the Ralts in the active because, you know, it does have less HP at 60, but I want them to be stalled out by the Druddigon as much as possible. So this is just a ton of stalling, and I get to my second Greninja, but I don't have the Frogadier. So I just Water Shuriken. I decide to go for the middle Curlia now because I see that they're evolving it. But honestly, the way this game ends up, it doesn't really matter which one I hit. So they actually do swing at my Druddigon. And where I'm looking at right now, right, is that Gardevoir's attack is 60 damage. So they need a Giovanni to one-shot my Druddigon from this point if they hit a Gardevoir in the next turn. I do find the Frogadier, so I'm able to get my second Greninja out next turn. I Greninja on the Curlia. And if I just Greninja'd the Curlia from the start, I would have killed the Curlia in the active slot, and then they would have been able to place their second Mewtwo. But I think at this point, it doesn't really matter because I have so much control over the board, especially when I get my second Greninja out. So they evolve into Gardevoir and they use the attacks. They actually swap out the low Gardevoir into the higher HP Gardevoir, and they poke my Druddigon for 60 damage. The problem is they don't have a Giovanni, so they can't one-shot the Druddigon. And now all I really have to do is just poke with the 2 Water Shurikens. So is there any way for the Mewtwo deck to win out from here? Well, let's say they attack my Druddigon, right? Druddigon faints, and then I'm going to one-shot the Gardevoir with Greninja. At any point, if they try to attack my Gyarados can live through a side drive, right? That's 150 health to my 180. My Gyarados can live through a Mew EX. That's 140 damage to my 180. And then if they try to attack with Gardevoir, I'm just going to end the game with the Greninjas instead. So at this point, the game is already lost. This game was actually locked away pretty fast. As soon as I got my Gyarados online, Mewtwo can't really do anything because Mewtwo cannot one-shot my Gyarados. And the problem is they have those Gardevoirs that are getting whittled down by Greninjas, so that means I'm always going to have a point up, which means that I only need to kill one of Mewtwo EX or Mew EX. So at this point, they can't do anything. We can 16 speed it. Nothing's going to happen, right? We're literally just poking with Greninja, stacking energy wherever we want. Honestly, it's considerable to stack energy on Druddigon in case we want to use Giovanni, which we can use to one-shot the Mewtwo EX if it comes out. But we already have the Greninjas, so that shouldn't really come up anyway. So they're going to swing and attack our Druddigon, play the Greninja instead of Gyarados. So now we're in no danger at all of losing the game, right? Because if they Sabrina us, we have a second Greninja to go through, and even a Druddigon to go through. And then we can simply just attack with Greninja here. We don't have to though. So I end up actually just swapping to Druddigon because either way, right? I want to stall out as much as possible. If I kill a Gardevoir here, right? They can play a second Mewtwo EX and maybe that can get them back in the game. But if I leave both up, that gives them no chance. So they Sabrina me, I just put a Greninja in. All they can do is kill my Greninja, and then boom, I can one-shot with Greninja plus Gyarados. I can one-shot. I actually did end up needing the Giovanni to win on this turn to one-shot the Mewtwo EX fully. If I had the Sabrina, I would have won. But if I didn't win and they had a Sabrina next turn, they would have won with the side drive. So this actually ended up being pretty close. But yeah, that's a display of the kind of things you could do with a Druddigon Greninja lock. You eventually just get the game to a state where it's unwinnable for the opponent. And then you just slowly whittle them down until Greninja wins out. But yeah, I think with Mewtwo being probably the best deck or one of the top 3 decks in the game, I think the matchup is actually pretty favorable for us. In exchange for that, we lose pretty hard to Pikachu. Alright, so just to drive home the point, we're going to review another Mewtwo matchup. So we open with the Druddigon and they open with Mewtwo EX. We also have a Magikarp on our bench. We go first this time and draw into Roki and Frogadier and Gyarados EX, right? So we know this is going to be a pretty good game. Prof Oak turn 1, because we can't do anything else turn 1, right? Can't attach an energy. And we already have our Druddigon set up, so we're chilling. And we're against Mewtwo EX, so we know we're not going to get Sabrina'd or probably not going to get Hitmonlead, right? Does anyone run Hitmonlee in their Mewtwo EX deck? If you do, and you can feel free to let me know. So we pass, and then we get to play again. We play Pokeball to thin our deck. Hit another Druddigon. We don't need to play that. We can play that as protection for Sabrina, or we can keep the slot open for another Gyarados EX or another Greninja for late game insurance. But yeah, I don't think I play it here, and I just begin stacking my Gyarados. Very happy to do that. Because Mewtwo EX, if they try to beat, they're going to take 20 damage from Druddigon. So they get 2 Curliers on the bench. They end up hitting us for 50 with the Mewtwo Psychic Sphere. And they take 20 from the Druddigon. Now I end up playing the second Druddigon in case of Sabrina. I did hit the second Roki, but it's really, really far away for me to get a second Greninja, so I'm just playing the second Druddigon. Again, I don't have a second Gyarados EX in my deck yet, so I didn't hit it yet back then. So they end up killing the Druddigon, which means a kill onto my Gyarados EX would win in the game, but that would take at least 2 turns. So all I need to do is to stall until my Gyarados EX is at 4 energy. I can just play the second Druddigon. Unfortunately, missed the Misty. If I knew I was going to hit the Misty, then I could have played the Gyarados EX swapped in and just one-shot the Mewtwo. But here we are. We got 4 energy. I believe they're just going to swing on the Druddigon because they can't really do anything else. No, they actually Sabrina us, so we can just sack a Froakie. We don't mind them getting into 2 points because we know we can end the game here pretty much. Like, they need to get a Mewtwo EX out, or they need to survive 2 turns of the Gardevoir +1 energies in order to get a side drive, because we know we can just one-shot here. So in order for them to win, they would need to get a second Mewtwo EX out. But the problem is, right, even if they get a second Mewtwo EX out, if they side drive and they wait 2 turns and they survive 2 turns for the side drive, then they can't even one-shot Gyarados. With Gyarados just being so tanky, this is a pretty good matchup for Mewtwo, just given that you can get the Gyarados out, which you usually can, because the Mewtwo ramp at right, it will take at most 4 turns of energy for Mewtwo to get 1 side drive off, and then they have to get 2 attacks off, so that's 5 turns to kill a Gyarados. And even if they hit the Gardevoir, that's at least 3 turns with plus the extra attack, so that's still 4 turns, right? And in those 4 turns, it's pretty likely that you'll be able to get a Gyarados EX off, especially if you get at least 1 heads with your Misty. And that's a 50% chance, right? So pretty good odds to win this matchup. So we get the second win against a Mewtwo deck. Another quick matchup against Mewtwo, right? They hit our Druddigon twice, and we can just one-shot with Gyarados freely. And after that, even if they have the second Mewtwo EX, right? Like they do here, they can't do anything because Gyarados can tank 2 shots. So this is a replay against a Celebi deck. Celebi is really popular in Mythical Island. It does look very nice. And the mechanic of flipping heads can be fun if you like gambling. So pretty common deck. And so we open as second. So we open with Druddigon, Magikarp, and Froakie in our hand. And they open with Celebi, and they're playing the Dhelmise variant. So Dhelmise, if it has a bunch of extra energy, it'll deal a ton of damage. So we open with Prof Oak, draw 2 cards. We draw into 3 supporters again. Whatever. No Misty. Like, come on, at least have one of them in Misty, right? We only really need 1 leaf ever. We don't really need to play around 2 leaves. But we run 2 leaves because the option of having 1 leaf at least is really good for us. So we know Celebi EX isn't going to attack us on the first turn. They need at least 2 energy. We just start stacking our Magikarp. We're not worried about a Hitmonlee because they're grass type. Because Hitmonlee does need 1 exact fighting energy. If you see fighting energy on the other side, then you're starting to think, oh, I might be screwed. And you can actually tell which energy is coming up next if you look at the big energy and the small energy. The small energy is going to be the one next turn. If that one's fighting, maybe you're running away. So yeah, Pokeball. We hit our Greninja as well, so we can evolve into Greninja. No Gyarados EX yet. We only have 1 copy at the time, so we're just stalling away. They don't really want to hit our Druddigon because Greninja is going to whittle them down. And we hit our Frogadier, so we're happy if we get another Froakie to start stacking up that one as well. Honestly, it's a viable option for me since I only have 1 Gyarados to actually stack energy on Greninja here. But we do hit our Froakie, so we can start stacking up Greninja as well. And they're just really reluctant to attack our Druddigon because they know as soon as they swap in Celebi, if I did have 2 Gyaradoses, I could evolve at any time. And I could actually even be hiding it, right? I could have been hiding it in my hand this whole time. Now, that would let me get red card, but I'm already holding 5 cards, right? So any red card they get, they're going to use on me. I draw another Pokeball. Cycle on my deck as fast as possible. Get the second Ninja out as soon as I can. Finally get our Misty, but we don't need it at all at this point. Doesn't matter because it's Tails anyway. And we just poke out Snivy for points. They do get an Erica and they do get the Servine. I get my draws. I finally get my Gyarados EX. Now I can play the game. Do I need to play the game? No, I don't need to. Now, once they hit a Superior, they can start playing around Dhelmise, which could be problematic for me, but it's just a little too late for them. So Dhelmise needs 3 extra energy attached to deal 70 more damage, up to 90, which which would one-shot our Frogadier, but not Greninja. And so we just continue poking. We're happy with letting Misty for fun. Of course we missed. And we're happy to let Greninja be in our active slot here to kill off that Delmise to score a point. They put in Snivy because they know as soon as they put in Celebi, it's dead. This is just the problem with Celebi in this matchup, right? Celebi is just 130 health while Gyarados deals 100. While Gyarados deals 140. So anytime Celebi goes in, it's getting one shot. So they have to play around other ways that they can, which they don't really have access to. So it's just a win. This is why I think the matchup is pretty hard winning for Gyarados. So we leaf out. We can just one shot with Greninja, Mist Slash, and then we win the game. This last replay is a catastrophe because we're playing against the fighting deck. Let's see what happens here. If you watch my shorts, you'll know what happens here if you watch the Gyarados counter short. Basically, we open with Magikarp and Froakie, and we see they have a fighting energy, so we might be cooked. They're playing Druddigon, so they're probably playing the Golem deck. Yep, Geodude's on the board. We get our research, and we get Druddigon. We leap out into Magikarp. Or Magikarp goes on the bench. We Misty our Magikarp. We have 3 energy stacked on Magikarp. Now, the moment they get a single Hitmonlee, we are screwed, right? We already expended a Misty and 2 energy on the Magikarp. So we lost 2 turns of tempo plus a supporter. And as soon as they get a Hitmonlee, they can swap out from Leaf into Hitmonlee and one-shot us with a single fighting energy. So that's why this matchup is so horrendous. I can start poking down with Greninja, but they have a potion. And I don't have access, actually. Even if I had a Magikarp, right? I can't even put it down because my bench is full. So maybe I should have left a Druddigon slot open, but the thing is, like, they're going to get Golem out fast, much faster than I can get a Magikarp plus 4 energy out, so the game is just lost from here, right? Golem can just steamroll through every Druddigon, every Greninja, one-shot everything, so the game is just lost from here. So, the moral of the story is, don't fight against Hitmonlees. Or if you do, be lucky enough so that they don't hit it before you get your Gyarados in hand. Just the fact that they have Hitmonlee in their deck list is kind of a death sentence for our Gyarados deck, which is why it's a pretty hard losing matchup. But yeah, that's going to be a wrap for this video. Thanks so much for watching. The new set, Spacetime Smackdown, comes out on Thursday, the 30th of January. I'll be posting daily deck lists on my Reels, Shorts, and TikTok, so be sure to drop a follow for those, taking deep dives into matchups, deck lists, and everything you can know about the deck. So drop a sub if you're not already subscribed. That's all for me. I'm super excited for the new set. Thanks for watching, thanks for the support, and climb on.